This is the tutorial on how to make the ruffle jacket. Okay, so it's very simple. I'm going to take you through how to cut and how to sew it as simply as I can, so that you can get this very well, or it's simplified as much as possible. And I hope you'll be able to understand it and then replicate it, so that we can see the beautiful outcome that you are going to get. Okay, so for this I'm going to use this satin fabric. It's a soft satin. I'm going to use it to create the base, which is the Bolero jacket, where we're going to be placing the ruffles. And then this is my organza. This is about 20 yards of organza fabric, so that is what I'm going to use. You may not use up to this, you can use more or less depending on how full you want this jacket to be, but I'm going to show you the process so you decide on how you want yours to be. So now the next thing I'm going to do now is to start marking the points where my ruffles are going to be. So I'm going to start from the sleeve. Remember, I added 1 inch seam allowance from my sleeve, so I'm going to mark out that allowance because you don't want the ruffles to enter into your seam allowance. You can even add maybe 1/4 of an inch to that. Okay, so that's what I'm marking, and that is the first point where my sleeve is going to, my ruffle is going to go with. So you can eyeball it or you mark it. You can see how I'm marking it. Now I have marked the sleeve area. So like I said, I want mine to be continuous. I don't want to do the ruffles for the bodies and sleeve separately. So now after marking it for this bodies, for the sleeve, my bodies also have 1 inch seam allowance. So what I mark here is basically what I'm going to be marking here as well. So I'm going to mark that into this part as well. So now I'm in the front. You can see this is my front. So now once I get to the front, I'm not going to be marking any allowance again. I'm going to make it as close as possible because I want the ruffles to be close. So this part, if you want your ruffles to be really close together, you mark your lines as close as possible. If you want to use too much fabric, then you can make them a little bit scattered or a little bit separate. But for me, I don't want them to be so separate, so I'll make it as full as I can, as my fabric can take. So now I am in the front. Now I'm taking it all around the shape that I have in front, so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm marking it on the neckline area. Now I'm on the shoulder. I'm going to the back, the center back. So remember, we are doing the right and left separately. So now once I get to the center back, which is where I divided it, I'm going to go down like this, and then I'm going to continue on the hem of the back. So now I'm on the back. I'm going to connect this all the way to the side of the back, and once I get to the side, I'm going to leave the allowance that I will need to join them together, and then I'm going to go straight back to the sleeve. Okay, leaving the same allowance. I hope you understand that. Okay, now I have done the first line. It's going to be continuous. Like I said, I'm going to form a long strip of organza and I'm going to be sewing it round, so I'm not going to be separating it. So once I get here, I'm just going to turn like this. You can see that it's continuous. I'm going to turn like this and then I'll continue. Okay, so now it becomes easier because all you just need to do is to follow the first line that you have created. So you make them as close together as possible so that you don't have any space, too much space in between them. So here I am just following this line that I already have. Now I'm turning on the back, on the center back, and then I'm coming back to the front. I'm connecting it like this. It's very simple. And then here I'm on the sleeve area of the front, and then I'm just going to follow the first chalk line. Okay, so you just continue like that. So I'm on the sleeve area now, and once I get to the hem, I'm not going to stop it. I'll just turn. Okay, and then continue marking it. So once you have the first line, the other lines become really easy for you. So this is what I am going to be doing till I fill up all the space completely. So we're going to take care of one side first so that it's not going to become overwhelming. Then after sewing this on one side, we'll go ahead and do the same for the other side. I hope you understand that. But basically what I'm doing is just connecting and following the line that I already created. So once I get to the hem of the sleeve again, I will simply turn, and this is how I'm going to do when I'm sewing it. So this line is just like a guide. It makes the work easier for you. You don't have to start figuring it out when you get to the sewing machine. So I'm going to fill up all the space now. Okay, I'm filling up all the space, and when I'm done with this, I'm going to bring it back for you to see before I cut the organza, and then we start placing it on it, so you can see what I have done so far. Okay, so I continue filling it up, and as you can see now, I don't have any space on the bodies again, so I'm just left with the sleeve area now. So I'll keep filling it up till there is no space to fill again. So I'm turning again, I'm taking it upwards, and I'm going to continue. But now the only space that we have to fill is on the sleeve area. We have successfully filled up all the space that we have on the bodies. So now I'm just left with the sleeve area. So now I'm going to keep filling it up till everything is filled up. So after this, now I'm going to go ahead and cut my organza. So you can see how I'm turning. Once I get here again, I'm going to turn. So if you have done the first one, once you do the first line, the rest becomes easier for you. Okay, sorry, my chalk is a bit blunt, so I had to start placing it multiple times for you to be able to see it. Okay, so these lines that I am drawing out is what I'm doing, and as you can see now, I think I'm done filling it up, so I'm just going to stop it around here. Okay, so when you're sewing, you can start sewing from here, or you start from the outer part, which is where I'm so this is the start point. Remember, we started marking it here. This is our start point, and it goes all down, and this is the end point. So you can either start sewing from here or from here, but I choose to sew from this outer part so that I can fill the bodies and everything before I bring it to a stop here. So now the next thing is to bring in my organza. So I have divided it into two for each of the sides, so I have 10 yards here. What I'm going to do is to fold it neatly, okay, before I start cutting it. I'm going to fold it. Okay, so after arranging your organza well, make sure you arrange it painstakingly. You can see I had to hold mine with pins so that the edges remains the same, because organza is very slippery, so it can be a little bit challenging. So just make sure you do a good job arranging everything on each other like this. Now you need to determine how long you want the ruffles to be. For me, I think around 4 inches is okay, but bear in mind that you're going to be placing it on fold. So for you, if you're working with 4 inches, by the time you place it on fold, it's going to be 8 inches like this. So this is what I am marking out. So now from the starting point, which is here, I'll place my ruler now. I'll place my chalk and start marking 8 inches in interval. So here I have 8. The next is going to be another 8, which is 16. Then after that, I'm going to mark another 8, which is 24. Then I'm going to mark another 8, which is 32. So that's how I'll keep marking it. So after that, I'm going to mark the next one, which is going to be 40. Then the next is going to be 48. And then I think the last one that my fabric can take is going to be around 56, which is this. So I'm going to mark it again on the other side so that I can make this into a straight line, then I'll be able to cut them out. So here again, I'm starting from 8, and then I'm going to go ahead and start marking just like I did for the next one. So I'm marking 8 because, like I said, I want mine to be around 4 inches. So if you want yours to be higher, you need to calculate it. Let's say you're working with 5 inches, then it means you're going to, if you're working with 5 inches, then since you're going to be marking 10 inches, okay, like that. So that is how you calculate it. So after connecting everything like this, I'm going to grab my straight ruler, and then I'm going to make it into a straight line so that it becomes easy for me to cut. So here I'm just placing it like this, and I'm marking a straight line out of this. So this is the first 8. I'm going to place it on the next one like this, and then mark out the next 8. Okay, so I have marked it. Sorry, because of the nature of the fabric, the chalk keeps cleaning off, but I hope you're able to see what I have marked there. Let me bring it down a little bit so you can see. These are my straight lines. This is the first one, this is the next one, and that is how I just marked this all around like that. So now after marking it, I'm going to grab my scissors and then cut it out. So when you are cutting it, you just try to hold this down, make sure that it doesn't shift. So when you're cutting, I'm going to just place something, or you can just use your hand to hold to the next one, so that when you cut it, it doesn't just disorganize basically. So now this is the first line. This is 10 yards on the table folded together. So that's the first cut. So I've cut out the first one, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut the next one. So you just cut following the chalk that you have there, and I'm going to place it. So now I'm going to cut the next one. So it's quite simple to cut. So now organza frills a lot, but because of the nature of what we're making, it's a lot. So I don't think I'm going to do anything to this, and I believe it's not going to really affect it that much. But if you want to stop the fraying, what you can do is go ahead and serge it. Another very effective way is cutting with hot fix scissors. Okay, if you don't cut with this regular scissors, there are scissors that is plugged, just like soldering iron. Okay, so when you cut with that type of scissors, because of the heat that is there, it tends to melt it. So as you cut, it's just going to melt and seal the edges off for you. So that is the easiest way to do this. My soldering iron is not here right now, I would have used it. So if you're working with a soldering iron, you can use it to cut instead of using the regular scissors. Then as you're cutting, it's going to be sealing the edges for you. So that's going to make the fraying easy to control. So you can either use that, or you burn it with candle, with lighter, or with any sort of fire that you have. So you can slightly burn the edges. You have to be careful with it so that you don't burn the whole fabric. So you just dab the light around the edges, so that you dab the fire around the edges so that it can seal the edges for you. Then the last thing you can do is to serge it. Okay, so you can use your serger to serge the edges, but for this type of project, which is quite bulky, that's going to be a lot. So, and it's going to be kind of overwhelming, so I may not really advise that. So I think burning is still the easiest way. And sometimes for some projects, if you serge it, it may become a little bit bulky around the edges. So I don't usually use that most of the time. So now I'm on the last one. I'm cutting the last line now. So because remember when I was marking out the space, I did not cut it, I did not stop at any point, so I kept turning and turning. So because of that, I want them to be one single fabric. So what I'm going to do now is to take it to my sewing machine and start joining them by the edges. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. It's a bit difficult to cut because it's bulky. It's a lot of fabric, piles of fabric. It's 10 yards that I just folded on each other. That's why it is this thick and difficult to cut. So finally I'm done with cutting it, and I have all of this to work with now. So now what I'm going to do is to start placing them and joining them together. So I'll pick one and then join. So each one of this is 10 yards, and I think I have about 6 or 7, so that's like 70 yards. You can see, like I said, it's a lot of work, but it is really beautiful. So by the time we're done, you see how beautiful it's going to turn out. So I'll go ahead now and start joining them by the side so that I can have them on one single pile. Then we'll start sewing. Okay, so you can see I've joined it together. So this is where you join it. So you can just search that place, or you use French seam. Just make sure it's neat. But this is what we are doing. We have 8 yards, 8 inches. Oh sorry, we have 8 inches. That's what we marked out. So I'll put it on fold, and that makes it 4 inches. So I'm just going to start from one edge. Is a lot now, it's quite bulky because we have cut it, so I can't bring everything to the table any longer. But I want to show us what I'm going to do on the sewing machine. So once I get to the sewing machine, I'm going to put it on fold like this so that I have 4 inches. Ideally you can put it on fold like this and then sew everything first, but this is a lot. I have about 70 yards now to sew, so it's going to be a little tiring for me to sew it first and then start pleating it. But if you can, that will make your work a lot easier. So you can sew it first like this so that everything is going to be together first. And in fact, you can even pleat as you sew. You can pleat everything like this and sew, so that you just place it and then start sewing, just like we did for the previous tutorial, the previous ruffle tutorial that we did, that we gathered everything before sewing to the neckline. I hope you remember that. So for this, I'm just going to pleat. I'm going to be pleating it, by the way. So I'm going to pleat it as I go. So remember, I have 2 points where I can start from. I can either start from here or start from here, and I choose to start from here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to place the first one like this. You make sure they are together. So I will place it and start sewing. So as I sew, I'm going to pleat like this. You sew and you pleat and sew on it. Then I'm going to pleat and sew on it. So you can see the height that I have. This 4 inches is just perfect for me. You can do more or less depending on what you want. So now as you're sewing it, we just need to sew following these lines that we have already created. That was why we took the pain in marking out this line. So I'm just going to sew following them like this. Okay, remember we are treating the right side first. After this, we'll move to the other side. So now let's go to the sewing machine. So I'm on the sewing machine now, and this is my starting point. You can see that I have noted that. So this is my organza as well. I've closed up the edge that I'm starting with, so I just sew it so that it can be closed like this. Then you cut off the thread and everything. So now I'll start by placing it like this. So now after placing it like this, you must have hemmed your sleeve before you start this, please. So now I'm going to start sewing, and like I said, you pleat as you sew. So this is the first, you lock your stitch and then you start sewing it. So now I'm making my pleat. So this is my first pleat. I'm pleating it, and then I'm going to sew, and then you arrange it. Make sure these two are together. That was why I said if you can sew them together first before you start sewing. So I will sew, I'll take them together again, and then I'll make sure to pleat it. Then after pleating it, I'm going to sew. So you can see that I'm sewing following this chalk, these marks, these lines that I already created. That's going to be the guide for you. So you sew, you take them together again, you pleat, and then you sew. So you can see the pleats that were forming already. You can see what we have there. So that is what we are doing throughout. So we are trying to fill up this space. I'm going to be doing this off camera, but as I go along, I will just come on and show you the progress report of where I am at. So now I'm still on the sleeve area. I'm pleating towards the front, and once I get to the front, I'm going to go to the back, just like we marked on the bodies. Okay, I'm following exactly what I marked. Okay, so now I am done pleating the sleeve. Now I have gotten to the front. So here I'm going to continue. So just like I said, I'm going to show you at intervals where I am at. So that's what I'm doing. So here I am sewing to the front. Now you can see the shape that we have in front. So I am pleating following this shape as well. Okay, and following the line. So like I said, it can be as close as possible. Mine may not be so close because this is a tutorial. Okay, so but if you want it really full, you make sure that they are very close. Okay, that's going to give you something really full. So this is just me pleating it now. At the center front, like I said, and then I'm pleating towards the shoulder. So once I get to the shoulder, I'll move to the back. Excuse me. So that's what I'm doing. I'm pleating towards the shoulder. And you can see what we have done so far. It's a lot of work. It requires patience because it's a lot, but it's really beautiful, so it's worth it. So, and then the organza just makes the work easier because it's going to stand because of the texture of the fabric. So now I'm on the shoulder, and then I'm going towards the back. So after doing the back, I'll go back to the sleeve, and then we'll continue the next cycle. So it is just that simple. I don't want this to be unnecessarily long, so I'm just going to cut it here and then do the rest off camera. So now I'm at the back and I'm continuing this. So this is my center back. You can see this was where we broke it from left to right, so I'll just go around it like that, just like I explained when I was marking it. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to turn there so that I don't enter into the other side. Okay, so this is quite simple. Just takes time. Okay, now the back is quite short, so it's not going to take a lot of my time. Now I'm done with the back length, so now I'm going through the side. Okay, so now I am done sewing the first line. I'm at the hem of the sleeve. Okay, so remember, it is a continuous process. You can just continue to sew like this, but because of these rough edges, so I'm going to remove it. I'm not cutting the organza, I'm just removing it because this is what I'm trying to explain. I don't want this rough part to be showing on this other side. So if I continue like this, you can see it's facing this side. I want everything to be on this side. So what I'm going to do after removing it, if I'm sewing the next one, remember it's continuous, I'm just going to place it like this in a way that this frailing part, this other side, is going to face inwards. Okay, that's what I'm going to do when I get to this side as well. I want it to be facing inwards like this. I don't want it to be facing outwards. I hope you understand it. So what I'm doing now is to place this under the sewing machine again and then follow. Okay, so now I'm on the next line, which is the second line, and I'm placing like this, and I'll pleat. Okay, so you can see, so the reason why I decided to sew it like this, you can see that everything now is facing towards the center point. That's because by the time I turn, I'll be able to use this to close up the next one. So you can see, so I'm just basically sewing it at the tip of the seam allowance so that this other part is going to be neat. So this is what I have so far. Okay, so now I'm going to continue sewing it just like that. Okay, so I'm done filling everything up. You can see, so when you turn to the wrong side, you clearly see the same lines where we sew it. Okay, I just sew it following the shape that I created, and this is what it looks like now. You can see how full it looks and how neat it is looking. That's because I'm using the next one to conceal the previous seam allowance that I have, just like I explained on the machine. So this is what we have for the first side. So now we're going to move to the second side. You can see that it stopped at the center back. So just like I did for the right, I'm going to do the same thing for the left as well. Okay, so now I am done. This is the first sleeve. You can see how full it is, and this is the second sleeve. Okay, so here, this tiny place that we have here is the center back, and you can, when we separate it, you can see where it is divided. This is the left and this is the right. So this is what it looks like on the inside. So you make sure that you cut off all this thread and then make sure it is as neat as possible. So now the last thing to do now is to close up the sleeve. Remember, the sleeve is still opened like this. So I'm going to fold. I will try to tuck in the ruffles so that it's not in my way, and then I'm going to sew in the side seam. Okay, you're going to sew in your side seam, and then the little side seam that we have for the main bodies as well, we're going to sew them together. So that is the next thing to do now. So you make sure that you sew everything together. Okay, so you can see I'm going to sew it all up for the two sides. Okay, so I have gone ahead to sew the underarm area close. You can see the sleeve and then the little bodies that we have. So all I need to do now is to try to dip my hand into it and then bring it all out. Okay, and it's done. So now you're going to cut off the thread that you have there. You can see how full this is looking. It's really full. Okay, so this is one of the sleeve and this is the other side. So I'll do the same thing and bring it all out. So if you don't want it as full as this, you just need to reduce, you need to increase the spaces that you have in between each of the ruffles, and if you want it fuller than this, you reduce the space so that they can be close together. So this is what we have now. You can see how voluminous this sleeve is. This is the first one, this is the back, this is the front, and this is the other sleeve. So I'll take it to the mannequin now. This is what it looks like on the back. I'll take it to the mannequin so that I can see what it looks like. Okay, so now I've placed it on the mannequin and you can see how gorgeous this is looking. So it's quite full. I think I like the fullness that I have, but you can make it fuller than this, or if you don't want it as full, you just need to create more space between each of the ruffles. You can see how lovely this is looking. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I can't wait to see your recreation of this. Bye.